you're only encapsulating like one moment in their career, and then it's also like it doesn't give you more information about the player.
Yeah. Well,
Like
that's why
it
it's
doesn't give you any
not.
context.
Yeah.
So I guess in my mind the playoff perks like refers to his like the clutch factor, the always leveling up at the point in which it counts.
Yeah.
And not only he himself, but he seems to have this, and this is the caveat. He seems to have this like factor that levels up his whole team around him too, where like even to get to Worlds, it was the whole run through the lower bracket. And then even in play, so they get through play-ins and then get out of the group of death. Like there's something about this guy and the way he plays that like when it matters, he's like dude just wins. He's like Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of like clutch gene or whatever you want to call it that like you could have as a player. Like when it comes down to it and when it counts, like this is the guy that you want to have the ball. And like I think Thorin and Monty talked about it when Perks initially was had his contract at G2 bought out by Cloud9. They were like, even with like Reckless in the bot lane role and Caps moved back into mid lane and everything and being their mid laner, even though they have more mechanical talent, and not to say Perks isn't mechanically gifted because he's crazy, but but like I would say Caps is a more mechanically talented player, but there's a difference in the like team dynamics. Then you don't have Perks, who is that leader, like head guy that everyone looks to kind of base how everything is off of. I mean, I feel like Yankos does that to some extent, but he's also much more quiet. I feel like Perks is very outspoken comparatively. So I think that's like a big thing. It shows like he did make such a difference for G2. I mean, they didn't even make Worlds without him.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's crazy. But that's just like total sidebar. Keep your hands and head inside the vehicle at all times. Buckle your seatbelts, check your mirrors, sit on back and relax. It's lights out and away we go for the Tall and Short of It podcast. Total sidebar.
no, it's all good. I actually started recording briefly into that. So,
Okay.
what I might do is like, I'll have to figure out how I do it. I might clip that and put that at the very beginning, and then do the like fade into the intro thing where it's like the intro title slides and all, and then go boom right into.
Dude, that's genius.
It popped into my head like once you started talking. I was like, oh, this seems like it could get good. So
That's genius.
So I was like, let's give this a shot.
That's a really good idea. I like that a lot.
I'll have to see. I might be able to clip the MP3 file for you if you'd want to add it at the beginning too of the audio. I could. Like,
there may be a way to add like a preview in that, like if you hover over, you get like an audio sample. I'll see about that. So yeah, if you can do that, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think I should be able to clip it, save it, and then send it over to you, or like put it on the Google Drive. So
sweet. Okay. Oh, before we get started, this is just whatever. I'll show you after the pod because it's not important to the pod at all. Okay, so just on the docket, we just want to do Rose, Thorn, and Seed at the intro. So I have on my other esports news. I kind of want to hit it briefly at the end, kind of at the end of the episode. I just want to talk about the last chance qualifier for Valorant. I think overall it's just kind of funny.
I do want to hear about it more.
Because that to me, it was just so mind-bogglingly like bad. So I'd like to talk about that just a little bit at the end. For Formula One, now there wasn't a circuit Circuit of the Americas last year. The last one was in 2019. So like I'd said in the text message, you just want to say like race coming up, race companion. The one note I do have is the Red Bull exposition that they did in, I think it was Dallas that they did it, where they had Checo in the F1
They
just
were
like tearing up and
actually
down the street.
they were all over US. So like they'll probably put it out tomorrow, but they will put out a like US Grand Prix like traveling across the states kind of video on the Red Bull Racing Instagram or like Twitter and stuff. They've done this for like other the one that I showed you that's like castle to castle, and they were going from like wherever
it was like Monaco to Baku or whatever it was.
Exactly. And so they'll do one like
Baku.
that. There's someone like I saw either a tweet or a TikTok of them like doing burnouts and spinning around in like Times Square or something. I don't know if it was okay. Like that's
the angle that we hit for Formula One then.
Yeah, so that'll be cool, and definitely like cool for it to be back in the US. So we can hit it on that a little bit. But yeah, definitely pushing the race companion and all, and then yeah, getting pretty much right in LCS. You wanted to talk Valorant at the end. What was the Valorant Last Chance qualifiers?
So it was called the Last Chance qualifiers.
Okay. I just wanted to Google it. So it's on my browser.
Gotcha. Okay. And then for League, I have the group stage shakeout, surprises, upsets, storylines. I'd like to go group by group if we can. Yeah. And then just like a note for myself, I bring in statistics from the League page to talk about individual players.
Yeah,
if you look,
some of that up too.
Yeah. So you can pull up the player stats page and you can see like a couple of the really interesting ones are like kill share, kill participation, gold per minute, CS. Like one of the points of data that I'd like to talk about is if you look, the top three CSers, the top three average CSers are Hansama, Ruler, Gala. The top CSer in the tournament is knocked out.
Yeah.
So my point, using that data then to the bigger point is where like how much of an ADC meta it's not at all, where like we see so much focus on this misfortune pick, but if you look at the way the games are being played and the way the players are playing the game, like ADCs are getting so much farm, but they're not the ones that are like ending the game.
Well, and another crazy thing for on this note is like Gumayusi.
So good, by the way.
Yeah, like he is, or sorry, not Gumayusi has the most CS per minute.
Yep.
But a much lower average CS per game. And so because like T1 is not having long games, like their average CS per game, his is down because the games don't last long enough for him to like get to that point.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing on SKT, the interesting thing about that is, and just to prime for when we get there, if you look at what is it? Gold per minute, gold share. So if you sort by gold share, you have is that what it is? Hold on. Yeah, and I'm glad that I did this. What's this gold? Because Faker is at the bottom.
He's above owner and Carrier, like all the way at the bottom.
Well, he's below Canna, Guma, and his jungler. I'm pretty sure.
Nah, he's
a little bit above. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has the same percentage though. It looks like.
No, it's
I'm looking at a different stat.
20.2 to owners 19.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So the point there is Kana and Guma are taking much more of the gold from Faker, interestingly. But I think that's how they're playing if you look at his champion picks.
Yeah.
Those are just some of the standout things that I was picking up on. But yeah, overall, then talk about the quarterfinals and the matchups, and then predictions on outcomes, and then we can close with Valor and LCQ and the flavor of the week.
Cool. Sounds good, man.
Cool.
Let's bring the boys in. Oh, hold on. All right.
Good evening, everyone. You're listening to another episode of the Tall and Short of It podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
I'm Aaron. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Justin, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. How are you? We are coming into kind of a packed episode. We got a lot to unpack. You want to tell the folks what we got, what we're looking forward to? How are you feeling coming into the episode?
I'm feeling good. We do have a lot going on, a lot of League of Legends primarily, but we will briefly just bring up the F1 race that we have coming up this weekend, the U.S. Grand Prix. We're really excited for that. And we will be putting out a race companion. But League of Legends, lots of group stage talk. We have the final list of teams that have made it onto the knockout stage. And then we've got a little bit of Valorant we're going to sprinkle in there at the end. But yeah, it's going to be should be a fun night.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. We have a lot going on for the group stages, and I'm looking forward to the knockouts. But let's start with some of the, we'll say side courses of the meal here, Aaron. Give me your Rose, Thorn, and Seed, eh?
Yeah, my Rose, Thorn, and Seed. My Rose, I had a really nice last weekend. It was a lot of fun. I got to hang out with some of Colleen's friends that are some of her best friends. So getting to hang out with them, get to meet some that I hadn't met, and kind of get to know them and all was really nice because she's met so many of my friends. I was like, okay, it's good for me to get to meet hers too. We got to hang out with her brother and sister-in-law's dog for a bit because they were out of town, so we did a little puppy sitting. We carved some pumpkins. We did some fun fall stuff. It was
nice.
Yeah, I tried to we tried to go back Route 82. They put a bridge where at the very front of it, but the second wire bridge is not in working order, and we were not feeling adventurous enough to try and cross the creek without a bridge.
Yeah, I have a feeling the places to cross over may be a little treacherous.
Yeah, it didn't look ideal, and we made the right decision because it started downpouring rain like 20 minutes later, so it was a good call to turn back. But
right.
But yeah, so a really fun weekend, just a lot of nice times. My thorn, though, is that my weekends and like work weeks have been just nonstop. I feel like I haven't had much time to just like breathe and chill and like kind of recuperate myself. Like every weekend recently has just been filled with doing things, which is great at some points, but I'm just getting pretty tired. So between that and work keeping me moving a mile a minute, that has been my thorn. I'm ready for a weekend where I don't have to do very much and I can just like relax and chill out. So
well, I'm happy to say that it's not going to be this weekend because you're going to be driving to my house for a live in-person race companion. The first time me and you will be watching Formula One together in the same room.
Yep.
That'll be exciting on camera.
Yeah, it's
We're going to be
a blast.
making out and smooching and whatnot.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good time. So I am very pumped for that. Should be a fun race companion.
It's just unfortunate you don't get the relaxation you're looking for.
No, that's not a big deal. It's part of how busy I've been and everything,
Sure.
and it's
Part of
it's
the
a lot of
gig.
fun. But yeah, I'm excited for that. We've picked a couple weekends down the line that we're just gonna like do nothing
Hell
and
yeah.
like not commit to any plans. So
Good old staycation.
yeah,
Pandem staycation.
it's kind of the goal for those right now. So
Nice. Okay,
so
cool.
yeah, that's my thorn, is just being kind of wiped out. My seed is just that it's almost the weekend. I get to see one of my old work friends from the hotels and her husband. They're coming up to go to a wedding up here, so I'm gonna get to hang out, catch up with them over a drink, and just get to hear what's going on with them and everything. So it'll be cool.
Nice. That's what's up.
Yeah. So how about you, man? Hit me with it.
So for my rose this week, a little bit of consumerism. We've been getting some quality of life updates. We have been putting, some savings away to get this and that. And Sarah's been able to. She got some new headphones that she's been really enjoying. She got some art stuff that she's been really enjoying. We went in for a new island for the kitchen that'll add like more storage, more usable space. What else? What else? We upgraded our face cradle for the table at the office. So now it's like a memory foam, so it's not as like just like weird. So hopefully it'll offer like a little more support and not be as like kind of rigid.
Gotcha.
So yeah, just like all sorts of quality of life upgrades. So that's pretty cool.
Nice,
And
that's
then
awesome.
I'll start with my seed before I talk about my thorn, because my thorn's kind of dark, but I thought it was interesting.
Okay.
But so my seed, and I'll keep this short as I can. I'm going to be talking about the subject more this Saturday on the new episode of Push and Pull. Check it out. But I felt I'll say discomfort on my left forearm. This is probably like a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And it was the kind of discomfort that told me that something was like really wrong, or if I let it go any further, it could go very wrong. And so I started kind of poking around in my arm, trying to feel what was going on. Overall, with like some icing, muscle work, stretching, and like being very mindful about the issue and how I'm like proceeding forward, I've successfully, and today's been the first day that the tissue has felt healthier, and like that it's done some healing, where I did the protocol that I would have done with a client, and it like worked.
Nice.
Right now I had access to the knowledge and the way to do it on myself every day, but with like stretching it, trying to avoid the activities that would have been bothering it, icing it, and just rolling my forearm and like working on the issues. So the note is I was able to rehab one of my own developing like injuries, which I thought was pretty cool. And then B, it was using not a different paradigm. It wasn't like I treated my issue any differently than I would have treated a client issue. And so it's like bootstrapping, it's reinforcing, where it's like, all right, so like we're getting in this groove where you've applied a couple of things in tandem together, and here it is working, which answers, this is why it was my seed, it answers a question that I had asked a while ago of a client, where I was like, it was kind of weird and selfish, but I knew the answer was important. I asked, like, I wonder what it's like to get worked on by me. Like, I don't know. Like, I know what my process looks like and feels like, but I don't know, like, what it I don't know what it actually feels like, right? Like, so I thought it was actually like kind of fun to work on one of my own issues.
Yeah,
So
definitely. And
that's
that's
my
like
seed.
a quality thing. Like I don't know how much you've worked on like forearms with your like clients in general, but the fact that you were able to do that, that's also just practice to see
Mhm.
how like uh that same recovery strategy and all would work for one of your clients.
Yeah. And like you were hitting on, I've gained a better understanding of the forearm that I didn't have previously. Right? And now I also know something about the symptomology, right? Where if somebody says, "Oh, my forearm feels like this," I'll have now intimations of what it could be.
Right.
Or like, "Oh, I'm familiar with that," or that sounds like this.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
so that was really interesting.
Nice. That's awesome.
Now for my thorn, which is pretty dark, but again, I think I've learned something. So I was walking Sasha yesterday, and there was like a chill in the air. And I had this feeling of like, I kind of like autumn and this weather. I love putting on a hoodie. I love the smell in the air. The Halloween vibes are pretty cool. I like pumpkins and gourds. The color aesthetic is really neat. Like there's a lot to really enjoy about this time of year. But and I cannot get away from this like feeling of dread for just the cold months in general. And I've never been able to like why? Like yeah, I get it, it's cold, but like am I just a pussy?
Well, like, what is it that you're not liking about it? Is it just the cold, or is it like the general season?
I think it's what it reminds me of. Now, here's where it gets dark. So, when I was young, all four of my grandparents died. All four of them. And guess when their funerals were? All of them were in the cold months. So I remember, and like once I had this thought, I just got all these flashbacks of just like being cold in the churches, standing outside. Like there was no feeling of warmth at all on any of these funeral days. And all of my grandparents died when I was like young. So it felt it like it feels like it made like a pretty significant impression on me where like it seems like the way the world works, this makes sense, is I think I associate the colder months with death and like the death of loved ones. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I was very close with my grandparents. I'm not saying I was like significantly emotionally affected by their deaths because these people were important to me, but it was the fact that I was surrounded by death and grieving adults that I didn't really know just in cold months, and I could not get warm on any of those days. And you could feel it in the air, and it was actually like Fahrenheit wise cold out.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I think that has made an impression on me. And since having that thought, the feelings of like, the thoughts of not wanting to be cold have kind of like dissipated away, which is weird. I don't think that's all of the answer. I believe I just don't like to be cold, and that's okay. But I truly believe there is something to that.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it's something that, like, stuck with you even subconsciously to some extent. But at the same time, I think a lot of people, like, feel that way a bit more. Like, the days are shorter, it's dark
Yep.
longer.
Yep.
You like when you get up in the morning, it's dark. When you get home from work, for most people after a 9 to 5, it's dark before you're even leaving. You're spending
Yep.
all the daylight hours inside. Even in like the wintertime as a kid, though, like you don't have, yeah, you have a few hours in the middle of the day. You can be out doing stuff with your friends, like sledding or things like that, if there's snow. But
Right.
if
Which
not,
around here there
you're
really
just
wasn't
like
much.
sticking inside, doing not much. You don't have like the luxury of the like late summer nights and things like that where people have a barbecue and then sit outside chatting until it's like getting dark and all out
in like shorts and a t-shirt.
Like there's just a lot of just natural human inclinations, I feel like, to just, or like things to push you to kind of stay inside, almost like hibernate-ish, and do less things.
Sure.
So
I would definitely agree with that.
I don't associate the winter as much with like really exciting, fun times other than the holidays, like those days. Like
right, but you could if you were like skiing and snowboarding and
even
like,
with that though, like a lot of the things that I said still kind of come into play. You're still it gets dark out much sooner. Like you're not spending like entire days outside on the mountain. Most people aren't. They're like a few hours, go to the lodge, hang out a bit, like go back out, get a few more runs in, and then it's night and it's like, oh.
And then fireplaces are a big part of that vibe as well.
Yeah. So it's just a lot more
there's a lot that goes to it.
Not calm, but like less active things during the winter. So that probably is kind of a little bit of a downer too. Like you're getting less interaction.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk about my dead grandparents. That's all, dude.
That's fine.
Nice. All right, cool. Moving on.
Like we said, race companion this weekend.
So God, rest in peace.
For Rip.
Rip. Oh, dude, Ripperino Grammy. Ripperino Grammy Wanger, dude. Oh, dude, pour one out for the homie. Pour one out for the homie, Grammy Wanger, dude. All right. I'm sorry, Mom.
It's okay. I'm not Mom, but I'm telling you it's okay because it's funny.
Thank you.
If it's funny, people can't get mad. That's what my tattoo artist told me. He's like, even if you do something fucked up, if it's funny, people can't get mad.
Well,
like for
know.
instance, I mean I don't know if I agree with it. I'm just saying this is what he told me. For instance, he was driving one of his friends home, he said, like late at night, not that long ago. It was like a kind of rainy night. There's this person who was like walking by the side of the road and he saw a giant puddle and he was going to like slam right through it and just like shower this person in water. But he's like, they're already wet anyway. So like,
yeah, but getting nailed with a wall of water is pretty funny. Or nailing someone with a wall of water. Like, regardless if they're wet, like, I mean, that's actually bad logic because he's probably the same type of motherfucker that splashes somebody in the pool. Like,
now,
they're already wet.
That's less of a... He thought this would be hilarious to do, and his friend stopped him from doing it.
Okay.
So then he was pissed at his friend for like half an hour of like the ride. He like wouldn't talk to him except being like, I can't believe you made me miss that golden opportunity.
What?
he told me for a while, he's like, I'm not a good person. I was like, yeah, like, but you do some good things. Like he's involved in a bunch of nonprofits and like does things for
well, it's because he's such a piece of shit.
So he's like evening out his karma.
It out. Yeah.
He's evening it out, but yeah, that's what he taught me during our many tattoo sessions was people can't get mad if it's funny. So
I will leave that up. We may need more data for that, but you know, we can put a pin in it.
Fair.
Yeah.
But US Grand Prix live race companion, we're going to be going over just some stuff probably pre-race in terms of what we've seen in previous races at the US Grand Prix in terms of what to kind of expect a little bit during the race in terms of passing and how the track is for overtakes, straight line speed, corners, things like that. along with kind of just briefly recapping the qualifying and everything prior to the race start. But then we'll be getting rolling, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think on the lead up to the U.S. Grand Prix in Austin, is it? Is that where? Yeah. Red Bull has been doing some features where they're like driving the, I don't think it's this year's F1 car, but an F1 car, like through the streets of different cities. They were like doing donuts in New York, and they had an exposition in Dallas. Like, I think that one was either yesterday or the day before. So Red Bull doing some exciting things on the lead up, and we've seen, obviously these are all just like great PR moments and teams just trying to like drum up excitement and whatever around their org and the race. But I thought that was a fun way to lead up to the US Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's really cool when they do those kinds of things. They're one of very few teams that does something unique like that. And between that and all of the like crazy stunt things that Red Bull has in their kind of repertoire for filming and videoing and things like that, from people skydiving to flying planes and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff that that they like to put out, and it's very unique from the other teams that are typically putting out like little interviews or different things like that with their drivers, trying to find another way to do some fun stuff. But Red Bulls is a pretty cool one.
Yeah, I think it is a, you might say, efficient way to bring in like a younger audience, because obviously that stuff's being posted to TikTok and it's on their Instagram and they're posting it to YouTube and all that. So it is a focus on, I don't know what the companies would call it, but it's a focus on like new media marketing, I guess. And it's fun to see big companies doing that in interesting ways that are actually engaging, that don't just feel like just like vomiting out just like an advertisement for this thing.
Yeah.
It feels like within the spirit of Red Bull. It feels within the spirit of the just like motor racing in general, but it's also very, it's a very modern take on F1 advertising and marketing, where and tell me what you think about this, but I had a view of Formula One that was like super prestigious, and it felt like it was in like cigar bars, and you know, racers were being talked about over like horse races and like on a yacht. And while these things are true, it always felt like there was like you had to know somebody to like watch it or enjoy it or whatever. But there's something about the way Red Bull engages with the fans that makes you feel so up close. I'll use a term like, it doesn't feel gatekeepy at all. It's I don't know what a good word would be. I think just like engaging is the best thing that I can say about it. It just feels super modern, super fresh, and I love the idea.
Yeah, and I think the only other team that I've seen do some similar things is McLaren, in terms of they have done things like Lando's helmet being designed by I think a child for a charity kind of thing last season. I think just this week saw they have like a commercial out kind of for McLaren F1, or it was a skit or something they put out, but it's Lando is like chauffeuring this kid to school, and like
That's so sick.
he does it like the kid, and it's like one of those like surprise like kind of things, like the kid was like an actual kid who didn't know that Lando was going to be like picking him up.
It wasn't a robot kid. It was a real boy.
It was a real boy.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
No, I meant as opposed to like a child, like an actor or something like that.
A plant.
So they, Lando like drives him to this like middle school or like late elementary school, like drops him off, as all his friends are like, "Oh my god!" And they're like, Lando's like taking pictures with him and everything. So it was kind of cool to see, and that's like I think the closest that I've seen to what Red Bull puts out advertising wise. I think
Right.
McLaren's done a pretty good job kind of capitalizing on more of their drivers' ability to be
Mm-hmm.
engaging.
Yep.
Whereas
There
Red
you
Bull is
go.
doing it on like their company engagement to like pull people in, like get them to like watch something and be like, oh, this is crazy cool. Red Bull, like all
Mm-hmm.
this, like going through all these cities. Oh, there's a Grand Prix this weekend. Like, that's awesome in the US.
Right.
Um, so it's a little different style, different target maybe, but both pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. There is something, well, the note that I'll say about the American Grand Prix in my research for it, you learn that the track was inspired by European designs, and then like based off of that, and it's actually which I and this is the point that I was getting to, is it would be a good race for people to get into it, because of, not only is it a, obviously the F1 calendar comes to America. That's super fucking exciting just in and of itself. But it's not like some, fuck, what's a track that people are like, I'd rather not be here? Like Sochi. People are like, we don't really like Sochi. It's a fun track. It's a track that the drivers like, and what I'm getting at is it'd be a good race to like come in at, because it is such a fun and iconic track, because it is like quite well designed and well raced.
Yeah, well, and I think they've taken a lot of like specific aspects. If I remember what I like much about the design, it's that they've taken specific aspects and designed things from other tracks that have been on the F1 calendar to create kind of this mishmash of like all these different tracks, and I think they do it pretty well, and it still looks like to be a really fun and exciting track to race on.
Hmm.
It's not just kind of like boring and too many. They've done too many things. Like they've made everything mesh well together. I think is
Yeah,
what I'm getting to. So
yeah, I would tend to agree. We have two straights, I believe. One, like, I would say like medium straight, and one a little
yeah,
longer. Um, Now, I don't claim to be like a track expert or anything. I just know that it has made for fun races historically, so it'd be a good one to get into. But yeah, that's all coming up this weekend. Obviously, same format as always. Practice on Friday, qualies on Saturday, and the race on Sunday. Look for the race companion to be up Sunday evening, where we'll do a live in-person reaction to the United States Grand Prix in Austin, Texas.
yep. So looking forward to it. But Justin, now we can move along to the meat of the show. You said the appetizers before. We're getting to the main course now.
Main course.
Worlds, League of Legends. We left off having just finished up the third day of play, or of the first
Groups.
round robin in groups. Ended up with some pretty mixed results. Some undefeated teams, a lot of teams right in the middle.
One undefeated team.
I think there were a couple at that point. I think RNG was also 3-0
Oh,
after
at the
at the end
end
of the
of,
first round
gotcha,
robin. So
gotcha. My bad.
yeah, so Cloud9 was 0-3, DFM 0-3. Tell me about day 4 a little bit. Let's get into the craziness. Cause
So day four is starting with Group A, then, right?
yep, so that would
Okay.
be the group of Fun Plus Phoenix, Dalmon Kia, Cloud9, and Rogue.
So, interestingly enough, this is the I would say one of the more surprising groups. We have Damwon and Kia going out of the groups first at 6-0, and Cloud9 going 2-4 after, like Aaron had alluded to, they went 0-3 on the first couple days. We had Rogue going 2-4 and FPX going 2-4, which means that there were tiebreaker games at the end of the day. Now, the big story for me on the second day of games for Group A, that was just a little bit of a recap. The big story for me was Fun Plus Phoenix not making it out. And obviously, this is the point that everyone's going to talk about, where they were the secret favorites for the tournament. Everyone talking about, oh, Damwon's really good, EDG is really good. But the underlying whispers were that FPX were the truth. They were the favorites for the tournament. So I think if you look at their roster, the way that they came into groups, the read on the meta wasn't that good, and we see ex world champions going out in the group stages and not even in honorable fashion. They go 2-4.
Yeah, 2-4 and lose a tiebreaker. So a pretty rough loss, honestly, in that match. That was, or just in the group in general. They came in, yeah, and even though they were playing a lot of the kind of relatively meta champions and all, by this point in the stage, they didn't seem to have a ton of flexibility. They just didn't seem to be able to play that style the way that they needed to compete. I think the meta change and the meta shift really benefited Rogue and C9 more than it benefited FPX. Things like the Graves coming into the top lane, Gwen getting played a bit more. It just seemed like they weren't quite on the ball with some of the changes. I mean, in the game against Cloud9, they ended up having Fudge playing Jace into the Graves, so they picked the Graves, but they just didn't do much with it. They didn't try and counter the Twisted Fate, really. The Rumble isn't what I would consider a natural counter. Went for a very engagey comp there, but that's just not really how or the style that is looking the most dominant.
Yeah, it felt like they were going back to team comps that had gotten them victory in the past. Like, obviously, if you look at Dune B, we've seen him be very strong on the Rumble before, but I just don't think that was a pick that was going to work here at Worlds. So yeah, FPX looking super super underwhelming. The only games that they won were against Rogue, and it's that's just really not what you expected coming in.
They beat Cloud9 in the first side, so their 2 wins were off. One off Rogue, one off Cloud9.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's still not that good.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. The big thing, obviously, now, I think Damwon just was dominant. I think they had a strong read on what was going to be good, and that was clear day 1, 2, and 3, and it even showed on day 4 for their finish out of the group stage. I think most interestingly, it was the Yuumi and the Graves pick from Damwon that in my opinion, just defined the group stage, where it felt like everybody was trying to answer that, oh fuck, that's what they're playing, and then it was a shift to try and adapt, and that's where the day 4, 5, and 6 7 conversations get really interesting, because then it can be about like what teams adapted really well. And I would argue FPX did not do that. To go to our previous point, Rogue, I don't think did that, but Cloud9 did that, I think, exceptionally well in not only their losses, but even in their victories. Like we saw, most of the times it was Cloud9 beating themselves and giving up advantages rather than just like getting rolled through. So I think that was like the big standout of Group A, in my opinion, was just the fact that they got out.
Yeah, and I think the kind of the comparison you can look at that really shows, because you said, like, obviously they went 1-1 against Rogue and Cloud9 in the group, but I think their competition and how they were up against Damwon is what actually is the most kind of concerning compared to C9 and compared to Rogue in the group, because we had their game against Damwon on day 4 as well as on day 1 were both just under half an hour games. So they were taken care of pretty swiftly, pretty efficiently by Damwon. The first game was 29-41, second game was 29-56. So both of those games, not really very close for FPX. However, Cloud9 and Rogue both really put up strong fights against Damwon in their day 3 or day 4 games. Rogue taking that game to 37.5 minutes, Cloud9 taking theirs to almost 39 minutes, really dragging it out until it was just in the Cloud9 game, Kassadin just got to his I can't lose power spike.
Just fucking realm warping on everybody, man. That Showmaker was disgusting in that game.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Like
so fed.
He just was just so strong at the end of the game, and had so much mana to just be teleporting on your face again and again. So the fact that Cloud9 and Rogue both seem to even kind of somewhat figure out a system and a game plan against Damwon where FPX couldn't, was also a pretty damning kind of piece of evidence for me on how they just weren't it this year. Like they had a lot of expectations, and that might be that is one of the worst kind of failures in the group round robin.
Oh, I would say so, and probably a significant upset, just like in general. I'm not sure I remember like one of the tournament favorites getting knocked out in group stages. That doesn't feel close to mine. So if it did happen recently, forgive me, but I do not remember it. So yeah, that was quite surprising for Group A. Yeah. But notwithstanding, I think Damwon looked strong in their games.
Yeah. I feel like at this point they have to be kind of the odds-on favorite winners. There's a couple other teams that definitely are still in the competition for it. I think that looking at some of the other groups, T1, it still looks like they are going to be very, very competitive. EDG as well. So there's still a lot to kind of see what happens, but I'm excited for this bracket stage that we have coming up.
Well, just for like reference to talk about Damwon, the mid laner Showmaker has a KDA of 14.2. This guy barely fucking dies. I can't think of another mid laner at this tournament that is like playing as well as he is. I'm not sure, and I think we said this on earlier episodes, but it's not that strong of a mid laner tournament. And some of the statistics across Showmaker's little board here are pretty fucking impressive. And that goes for his teammate Canyon, and Barrel is not far away either from some pretty good stats. So Damwon looking very fucking strong coming out of the group stages. You don't need me to tell you that. I just wanted to bring up that statistic because I think it speaks a lot to their play style and just how clean they are right now at the tournament.
Yeah, and I think the only team right now that looks that clean, in my opinion, is T1. I mean, their players are basically averaging at most just over one death per game. Owner and Kana are both 1.33 per game. Faker's 1 per game. Kiria's 0.67 and Gumayusi is 0.5 deaths per game. So they're playing very clean, very calculated. Not even
Super safe.
even in the game that they lost, they didn't get like stomped or anything. They still were playing very similar style. But Damwon, yeah, Canyon, Barrel, Ghost, like they're all performing extremely well, and I mean, just look very, very strong.
Agreed. So yeah, I think Group A, we started off the second round robin, super exciting. Happy to see that North America was able to put one team into the quarterfinals, and of course it was gonna be our boy Perks and Co. So Damwon Kia, Cloud9 get out of Group A. Super excited. We talked about T1 a little bit. I would just like to start the conversation about Group B. With T1, obviously they went 5-1 in their groups, and commenting on that loss, EDG was the only team to take a board off of them. And then in the second round robin, T1 got the better of EDG. And then, well, I was gonna say if they had to play the tiebreaker, but they didn't play the tiebreaker, so they only played each other twice.
They did not. But
Right.
100T did beat EDG, which was actually what caused there not to be a tiebreaker.
So wait, does that mean
And
100 Thieves is just as good as
better, actually. Better than
Better.
EDG.
That's what I thought. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure my math is right.
Yeah, your math is right.
That's so
there's
funny.
a nice little greater than symbol pointing right at 100 Thieves.
I didn't want to cut you off, but I just want to say 100 Thieves, they went 3-3, bro. Like, they did not look bad. Their record was actually better than Cloud9's.
Yep.
They just were in, like, a much tougher group. Although, that was getting 2 free wins off of Det FM, who went 0-6.
Yeah.
I did not predict that. Like, looking at the group realistically, sure you can see that, but based on how they played in like the play-ins, I thought it was going to be maybe like 1 or 2 wins from them. But to go back to T1,
Yeah, I mean, well, just talking about Detonation Focus Me, I kind of agreed with you, but it's also tough to say who they would have gotten a win off of, other than like
it
NA.
would have been 100 Thieves, yeah.
Yeah, which I hate to say, so I'm not too mad at it.
Neither am I.
But yeah, T1 has just looked extremely strong throughout. I mean, their game times have been very, very quick. They don't fuck around and just wait to see what happens. I mean, their game against 100 Thieves was their longest one of that day, and it was 31 minutes long, or 31:45. So it was just they cruised, and I think that's a bit concerning for everyone else in the tournament. It's just they've played so well, so cleanly, and haven't really looked to be challenged too competitively. Obviously a little bit, but really overall not as bad as I think most people would have expected. I think
Hmm.
everyone would have thought, hey, maybe they'll drop a game or two, maybe they'll have a tough time, and really just did not have too bad of a time with it.
Yeah, I think the argument easily could have been made that they dropped both games to EDG, but them going 1-1 against EDG seemed really strong, in my opinion. I think that was a great showing from them. They adapted really well, so kudos to them. And just to go a little bit deeper on T1, when Aaron and I were looking at some of the numbers, so reading pick and bans and like just seeing how teams are playing, it's very like top jungle focused meta at Worlds. So when you look at T1, you think like, oh, well, they have Faker. Oh, he's like a touted mid laner. Oh, he's pretty good. There's a storyline that develops when you look at some of the statistics for the team, where Faker is taking less gold percentage on the map and using the picks from his side, where he's been playing the Azir, he had the Zoe game, a couple on LeBlanc, where he's using his position to be more of a supportive role, and SKT has adapted to the meta that's developed to play big time through Canna in the top lane, and they're like succeeding at that. So they read the meta, they saw where they had to go, and they were able to shift appropriately. They get Gumayusi on these utility 80 carries. His positioning, you alluded to how many deaths he has. He has less than one death per game. You said it was
Or
point five, right?
no, it's exact. Faker's is exactly one. Gumayusi's 0.5. Or is that what
Point
you?
five.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Sorry, I got.
no, you're
Yeah.
good. So Guma's playing super safe from the role that we found isn't that important at Worlds right now. Obviously, some of the picks and bans are ADC centric, but the gameplay is not. So therein, SKT has adapt. I keep calling them SKT. It's just T1. T1 has adapted to where Faker was able to drop back his share of like how much gold he was taking, funnel that into Canna, play supportively from Guma, and here they are playing exactly the type of game that they have to be playing at this World's meta, where they're getting the Kennen, they know how to play the Graves, they're playing so much through topside, where historically, if you look at T1 and SKT, they weren't a topside focused team, but they've adapted as such, and that to me is very exciting.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is not only is he kind of scaling down his like different gold percentage and things like that he's using to allow other areas to shine, he's still able to perform extremely well on some like picks like the Twisted Fate, the Azir, the Zoe. He's picking a lot of these like long range champions, but these long range mages, but still ones who have phenomenal potential to output damage and do some really game changing things during team fights and during the game from that supportive role. I mean, Zoe with the bubbles, Azir with the Shurima shuffles, Twisted Fate ultimates, just being that supportive, always there and available to help your team out kind of player. He's adapted from. He doesn't have to be that uber mechanical, crazy like guy who he can be or has been. He just gets to play smart and play well. I think that suits him very well.
Yeah, so do I, and it suits T1 well too, where like they're clearly thriving in this environment. So looking forward to the knockout stages, I hope to see more of that. I hope to see more of T1 playing through the top side. Now I want to talk about EDG a little bit, because 4-2 was pretty surprising. They drop a game to T1, which arguably could have went either way. And then they also drop a game to 100 Thieves. Now, what do you think about EDG at the tournament and their matchups?
I mean, I just think they looked very, very strong. The game that they had against DFM, they just don't leave room for, once they have a good lead, they don't really leave room for other teams to come back. That was a pretty just dominant win. Yeah, they did struggle a bit against T1, but T1, with how well they performed, especially in the later days, that's just kind of, I think, what we almost expect moving on into the next rounds. I was a little surprised for them to lose to 100 Thieves, and that's not a knock to 100 Thieves. I think that they had a really good tournament, but based on EDG's kind of just what their expectations were and all, I didn't think that it would be as dominant, I guess, of a win from 100 Thieves as it ended up being. They had a really, really good game. I mean, just solid score lines across the board. The game did drag out a little bit, but 100 Thieves really just took them to town and had a great game against EDG. So there is still that room for EDG to kind of slip up a little bit. And I think that just that fact leaves the door open a little bit more, and can be a little bit more of a, not concern, but something to keep an eye on for the quarterfinals and everything. You just can't, you could get the really crazy on top of it playing extremely well EDG, or you could have some of those games where they do falter a little bit. So
what is interesting about the EDG going 4-2 is it put them in a position where they're going to have, I think, a tougher time in the quarterfinals than they may have if they were able to take that game off 100 Thieves. And a big part of the 100 Thieves victory, and I think a big part of their tournament overall, was Closer, their jungler. I think he matched up really well in the meta, and just like his play style fit super well with what was going on. But the EDG getting RNG for their quarterfinals, I think, is going to be maybe not as callable of a matchup. So them missing that first spot for EDG in particular, I think, is going to be pretty important, actually, in the quarterfinals matchup, because I think against RNG they're going to have, I think it'll be a match, to say the least.
Yeah, I would definitely, I would agree with you, and because especially looking back, it will be interesting, because looking back at the summer playoffs, they were on opposite sides of the bracket. EDG and RNG didn't play each other at all in the summer playoffs. Then EDG had auto-qualified, so they weren't in the regional qualifiers. So really, the last time looking at them playing each other in the summer season, I would have to go back a little ways to even find the last time they had played each other. So that kind of makes it interesting for me, looking at, hey, what is going to happen when these teams end up matching up against each other?
Yeah, and we have that coming up. I think that's the second quarterfinals. No, it's probably going to be the first one. It doesn't really matter, but that's one of the quarterfinal matchups. So talk to me. What happened with Detonation Focus Me, do you think?
I think they were just outmatched in positionally, in terms of just player quality, unfortunately, and that's not like they performed really well. The fact that they made it through the play-ins and everything is really a huge credit to Japan, but unfortunately, they just don't have players on their team that are necessarily going to be able to stand up against the likes of Faker and Canna or Flandre and Scout, and even 100 Thieves. Like Abadaga at Someday and FBI have been performing extremely well, like not even bringing up Closer, who was like the top jungler in the LCS this year. So I think DFM really, unfortunately, just got put in a group that they were punching up, and they, I think one thing about them is they don't really play any cheese styles that they're going to be trying to pick a game off you. That's not like the Turkish team from a couple years ago that had the Nocturne that was level 6 at like 3 minutes or whatever it was.
Right.
Like
well, they did have Urgot for their top laner.
They did, but I don't think that's like as far out of the meta as like some different things. Not or like they just didn't come up with like any sort of strategy that would counter these teams that had just like better laners and everything. They tried to play the meta as well as they could, and unfortunately like they just weren't quite good enough. So that's just the way it seemed to shake out, which is disappointing. Because it would have been fun to see the excitement from like Japan and everything for their team at least getting like a couple wins in the group. But it's still a huge step. This is the first time they've qualified into the main event of international competition. So they are still developing, and they've proven that they do have some really good quality players. They're getting there. So.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing either that team or another quality representative from the LGL. So yeah, unfortunate that they weren't able to pick up any games, but I think just overall, as the casters love to say, just great experience and on-stage presence. Or I guess on-stage presence is great experience, I guess, is what you would say. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, just 100 Thieves going 3-3, I was just super impressed with. Overall, I think North America has done like really well. Just a comment on the tournament overall. North America has shown up way better than I think previously expected and previous results would show, and this and that. I'm happy that we don't have any 06 teams for North America, but 100 Thieves not to make it out.
And I think that like NA we're looking better than we had been recently. I think
for sure
we're still a little ways from where we want to be, or some of the places we have been in the past. I mean, the season with Cloud9 ending up making it to the semifinals, I don't think the rest of the NA teams had performed very well that season. So I think it's good to see all of the teams at like a similar level. I think that's my big takeaway with NA this year at Worlds. So far, at least, we still have to see how Cloud9 does in the quarterfinals. But just the fact that all of the teams seem to be a similar level. We're not just two good teams bringing in like your little brother kind of to come in and play in the tournament. Everyone was ready to come out swinging. Cloud9 just ended up being the team that had the group that it just worked out. So,
yeah, but that's not to take anything away from the other North American squads. Both of them going 3-3. I think that's super respectable against like quality international competition. Taking a board off EDG, super strong. So yeah, definitely. Shout out to 100 Thieves for that. But yeah, so I think that I think well, let me just ask you, any other thoughts for Group B?
No, I don't think I have any. I'm just really intrigued to see the EDG versus RNG matchup that we're going to have. I was kind of glancing to see, and the most recent time that EDG and RNG played was in week 6 out of 9 of the regular season in LPL for summer. So,
Okay.
and RNG 2-0'd EDG
Okay.
in that matchup. So that was at this point, week 6 was back in mid July. So
Wow.
these teams, other than maybe scrims and whatnot, have not played each other competitively on stage for about 3 months.
Yeah, and that'll be the reason why, like, I think we're bringing this up is that's a China versus China best of 5, and when you get in region best of 5s at World, some interesting things tend to come out where you see like mind games from previous matchups. So the China versus China best of 5 I think is going to be super interesting.
Yeah, similarly to SKT versus Hanwha Life, because
Yeah.
that's a kind of similar situation. But we are going to move along after a short break to day 6 with Group C of the playing stage, or the
Yep.
group stage.
And we'll be right back. And we're back. The one caveat I was thinking, one of my thoughts earlier got interrupted. I was trying to think. I was trying to remember something I wanted to bring up, and it totally fucked my train of thought. But the one caveat that I would like to make for this episode here is, in my research, one of the things I did was listen to Monty and Thorin's Summoning Insight episode. So some of my points, like, I know are like his Thorin or Monty's points. They just like brought up some interesting things that I wanted to talk about with you. So
Well,
yeah.
and I had some similar things, like different breakdowns of stuff that I looked at, that gave me some thoughts on things that I didn't necessarily see when I was looking at the groups watching the games and everything. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean that's part of what the analysts and other people can kind of bring it. I think it adds to the conversation. So.
Yeah, for sure, and it's just a way to, it's just a way to, I think, be better informed. I just wanted to just have that caveat that not all of these are strictly of my opinion, strictly of things that I developed myself. Obviously I have some
Gotcha.
help,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's just a little caveat. But moving on, let's cover Group C here. We had RNG, Hanwha Life, PSG Talon, and Fnatic. This was an interesting group, to say the least. I would not have expected. Well, I guess overall the Fnatic without upset was pretty tough, but being that PSG had gotten some games, I was hoping it maybe could have looked better for them, but not to be the Korean killers.
Yeah, it worked out about how I think people expected the group to, just based on kind of the expectations of a Korean and Chinese team in there, even if it is the fourth seed Korean team, against PCS and against Fnatic without their starting bot laner. So it wasn't super shocking. I think the one game that did catch me was, of course, Fnatic's one win. Getting that against RNG and taking that off them is pretty interesting for sure. But yeah, PSG, I wish that I enjoy watching them. They have some phenomenal talent, and at this point, I think Maple is just going to play forever. So I fully expect him to still be around in coming years for Worlds and international tournaments.
Yeah, they are just a super exciting team to watch. I'm happy that they were able to have a good showing here at Worlds because I think aside from talking about who's good and who's gonna win and blah blah blah, I think part of this is just like what teams are fun to watch. Because at the end of the day, it is kind of it's a show. It's a competitive show. And PSG Talon is just a fun team to watch. I think I didn't know this was my angle, but when you brought up that point, that's the completion of the idea. Is I would have liked to see PSG Town do better because I enjoy watching them play. But as you said, RNG and Hot Wildlife getting out 1 and 2 is about what was to be expected. But yeah, that was just a really good point because yeah, they're super fun to watch.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. And just with Maple in general, like I just wanted to bring up the fact that this is his like 8th year playing League of Legends. His first Worlds tournament was at Season 3 Worlds.
Where he would have been playing for Flash Wolves? Or was he on...
This was before Flash Wolves. This was on Gamania Bears.
Whoa.
So they were the PCS team from,
and that was like hardcore. They were developing region. They would have been talking about him like he was like a little child. Like, ooh, isn't it so cute? The PCS region.
Not quite, because remember, this is the year after Taipei Assassins had won the World Championship in Season 2. So I think that in Season 3, the expectation would have been for them to be relatively competitive.
Wait, okay, so Taipei Assassins was a PCS team.
Yeah, Taipei Assassins were. Let me just look at Season 2. So yeah, Taipei Assassins were coming out of. I gotta see which region.
Was it?
Or LMS. So yeah, what the precursor to the PCS. Taipei Assassins.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I was getting stuck on. Was that the org had changed names? Thank you for googling that because yeah, I was super confused. Okay, thank you.
So Taipei Assassins was an LMS team.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, that analysis was big wrong then. No, they were a world class region.
But yeah, so like just talking about being someone fun to watch though, like Maple that was Season 3 back in 2013 that he was playing, and just him in general, I think he's only like he is 24 years old. So he's been playing since he was 16, back before they made the rules about your age for the World's tournaments. So
wow, okay.
Yeah, so just in general, it's pretty wild, but he's a fun player to watch. PSG has been a fun team to watch at the World Championships, so it was definitely a little bit of a bummer to see them go down, but seeing Chovy and Deft go on to the next round of the tournament is very exciting, because I think Chovy is playing that. I think Chovy is playing that similar style to Faker that is just looking very strong from the mid lane role, with like the Twisted Fate play that he's had going on, the LeBlanc, even if he needs to be putting out damage and everything. And so I think that's going to be fun to watch him kind of continuing on into the group or the knockout stage.
Yeah, and we have Hanwha Life is up against T1 in their quarterfinal matchup, so we're going to see Chovy versus Faker.
And that's actually the first group, so that's 8 a.m. on Friday, Eastern Standard Time.
Ah, very cool. So yeah, I think that's going to be a great mid lane matchup. In, like I'd said before, in a tournament that isn't stacked with, great mid laners, not a million of them anyway. Yeah, I think Chovy versus Faker is going to be a good one. I think T1 take it away from the teams and away from groups a little bit. Do you think we're going to see TF be continued to be so contested on either side, or do you think teams are just going to straight up ban it and play something else?
You'll probably see a couple of bans, but I don't expect it to be heavily banned unless in a bet. Well, I mean, things just can go many ways in a best of five. If someone just absolutely pops off on the TF, like they're not getting it the rest of the rest of the stage or the knockouts. Like it's one of those champions. There are plenty of other mid laners though, between the Sylas, the LeBlanc, the Ryze, that have been pulled out and everything. Even Syndra and Zoe, who are have gotten their time in the sun. So there's not much sense banning out mid laners unless I would say someone just dominates a game and just kick someone's teeth in a little bit on someone. So,
Sure.
So yeah, I expect the TF to still be pretty contested. It will depend what kind of play style teams are looking for. I do expect it to continue to be countered with the Sylas to allow for him to steal that ult and kind of make similar plays. But yeah, I think that's one that will continue going. I don't necessarily expect some of the focus to go onto that mid lane though, when it seems like bot lane is so heavily contested in the pick and ban. Even though, like we said, the AD carries aren't the ones who are necessarily getting the huge leads. They're just the ones kind of coming in at the end for team fighting, and you just need an AD carry with some good positioning and all of that to be able to continually put out damage late game. So
Yeah, which is why we're seeing the MFs, the Jins, the Aphelioses, Ezreal, people that can just put their damage over top of the big team fights.
Yeah, so that's kind of been the biggest focus with bans, and I feel like that's going to continue. They kind of just want to keep people on relatively regular stuff.
I think that makes sense to me. Just the fact that Twisted Fate is shared between Faker and Chovy, like pretty significantly. I know everybody's played at the tournament, but if you look at their pool specifically, it's the TF is played a lot and picked a lot. I'm curious if they'll just take it away from each other and have them go on something else. But no, that's just an interesting question. I'm curious if we'll see the Rise more. We know Faker is pretty disgusting on Zoe when he gets them.
I think one thing that I've been slightly surprised about is the minimal Orianna gameplay. I feel like she's always been a little bit more prevalent, at least as a kind of easy blind pick for the mid lane and whatnot. So it's like pretty safe, but can do a lot. So I think that's been interesting, just as a side note for one of those Faker champion pool champions, having not been in when the likes of like Syndra and Zoe and all are. So
yeah, and we may see Ori more in the best ofs. Like we saw it a couple times in groups, but overall I'm just not sure it fit the speed of the games. She just doesn't have the damage output that you need early. She definitely doesn't have the smack that a Zoe Paddle Star does. So I think she gets higher priority in games that they plan to be lasting a little longer. But yeah, we may see more of that in the best of stages. But yeah, that's a good point. That's a good champion to hit on, because she is usually a world staple where, like you said, she's just consistent, doesn't have bad matchups, and just overall is a staple in mid lane champion pools.
So I guess that kind of wraps up the Group C. Going on to the final day and day 7 with Group D, we had Gen G, Mad Lions, LNG, and Team Liquid. And we had both kind of said the last episode that these teams, this was the most contested and kind of parallel group, I would say, at that point. And I mean, it proved itself kind of continuing on into this last day of the tournament with all the teams going 3-3.
Which was a first time. That's never happened before. All the teams ending the day at 3-3, which sparked a three-way tiebreaker at the end, where you had Gen G play. I forget what the games were. Hold up. Hold up.
Gen G.
Gen G played TL for the tiebreaker, where they won, knocked TL out, and then Gen G played Mad Lions to see who got out 1 and 2, where Mad Lions beat LNG in their tiebreaker. So super exciting group, something we've never seen before. Now this is a world where even North America was taking boards off China and Korea. I think Team Liquid showed up really well in this group. There was a lot of really exciting games. I think Mad Lions just showed a lot of grit on the day, and playing that many games back to back, it was just a gauntlet in and of itself. So you could see like the wear on players' faces. You could just see evidence of these guys having a really long day. So I think Group D was quite the exciting day of matches, just with how much parity there was, and it really like anybody was going to come out of that group, which was super exciting. What were your thoughts?
Well, I definitely agree with you on kind of the wear it took on players. I mean, just looking at it, Mad Lions played 4 of the last 5 games of that day, if you include the tiebreakers, or sorry, 4 of the last 6 games that day, which is just a lot to be going, like you said, back to back to back. I was really impressed by the parity in the group. I mean, we had everyone taking games off of each other. I mean, Mad Lions beating Team Liquid, who beat Gen G. It was like a little circle of just everyone beating each other. And I thought it was so fun because you did end up getting a little bit of different play styles, because everyone, I think, was trying to figure out what would be the optimal way to win in their group and beat these other teams that were playing so competitively. We saw the Azir, the Lissandra coming out. People go into the Ezreal Yumi instead of going after the Misfortune for the pick and the Aphelios and everything. You saw people just making all these changes. Lulu in the support role, and I thought it was really fun to kind of watch this group, because every game you really couldn't tell who was going to necessarily come out on top, and we had some really fun games because of that. So
yeah, what was really exciting, I'm trying to think, well, I guess it was last played in the LNG versus Gen G game, the Azir. Was that the one? Because I'm thinking of a Shurima shuffle by the Dragon Pit, where he went like into the pit, over, and like swooped in. I can't remember if that was day one or if that was in the first round robin.
I think that was in the first round robin.
Gotcha. Okay.
Correctly. But I mean, Humanoid played the Azir in game 1 of the day, then against Gen G, and then Gen G brought it out later on in the day versus LNG. It was, I think this group played it the most out of probably any other team at Worlds.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting confused with the games, but yeah, Azir has been, and historically has been, a super useful control mage. You can break up the fights, and we've seen players really using him to a great degree. I was going to use the example of the team fight, but whatever.
Yeah.
Azir is just super strong. So seeing what your original point was, and I totally skewed away from this. What your original point was the mix-up of the pick and bans that we saw on that final day to try and get these Ws. We saw the Yone come out, which I thought was super interesting. Putting that with a Talia in the jungle, so you got the AD mid laner pick up an AP jungler. So teams getting the Talia back in rotation. I think what's going to be super important for the quarterfinals is going to be that Poppy pick that we saw. Looks like that was Mad Lions that played it on day 7.
Played phenomenally on that pick. I mean,
Yep.
he was just like locking people down, stopping them from being able to jump away with the Poppy W. Like he played it so well, and Mad Lions really did a good job of utilizing that pick, which was awesome to see. And that's definitely a fun pick that I hope we get to see more of as a potential counter to other champions, because it really, I'd have to look how many times it came out, but I think it was only played a couple times.
It was one time by Genji and then earlier.
Yeah, so it was played 7 times overall.
Looks like it was EDG, T1, EDG didn't pick it. It was Detonation Focus Me, T1, and 100 Thieves, it looks like, picked it. Or no, Dead FM picked it twice.
Yeah, so. But
interesting pick nonetheless, and in that game it was super useful. They had the Jax dash, the Ziggs dash, the Lee Sin dash, the Irelia dash. So effectively that Poppy pick countered all 4 of their champions, or not countered them, but was able to shut down their dash at least. So I thought that was a super strong adaptation. But yeah, just to comment, I just really like that point about the mix up of the final day meta, where all of these teams were just trying to scrap it the fuck out.
Yeah, and even that same game with Mad Lions, they put Arma on the Gwen with the Ignite TP as opposed to having Flash. So they even took that opportunity to shake that up. I know we've seen the Ignite TP in a number of other matchups, but the fact that they were like, we're going aggressive this game in the top lane and trying to kind of shut things down quickly with the Gwen and the Poppy. They controlled that game very, very well. So I'm looking forward to seeing them against Damwon. I know Damwon is a heavy favorite, but I like Mad Lions' adaptability, and I think that in a best of 5, they hopefully will show up a little bit more than maybe people would expect, and take that to 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, and I definitely think with the games in the grit, I'll say the grit in the games that they had, I do believe they could take a board off of Damwon.
I think that they might be the first team to at this world championship, but that is yet to be seen. Briefly, though, I did want to also, before we kind of just talk about those knockout stages, I did want to talk briefly about just an interesting thing that I didn't realize, I guess, with
go for it.
The way the tiebreaker games are set up. So, for RNG and Hanwha Life, they both had the same record, and they were both better, so they automatically were had just the first place tiebreaker game just between the two of them. For the group with Gen G, Team Liquid, LNG, and Mad Lions, we had 3 games from that group because all 4 teams were in that tiebreaker. But for the Cloud9 Rogue FPX tiebreaker that we have, it was interesting because the reason Cloud9 was the number one seed in that tiebreaker essentially and only had to play one game was because they had the faster game time, which is just such an interesting way to do a tiebreaker there. But I guess it does avoid any sort of, oh, if each team has to play the other, you could have this thing where it's like, oh, well, Rogue beat FPX and FPX beat C9 and C9 beat Rogue, and then you're in the same tiebreaker position again. So I guess they have to do it that way. But I didn't realize that that's how that would break down. I feel like typically what we see is either a single tiebreaker game for a first and second place decision, or a tiebreaker between second and third, or two people tied for second to see who advances. So that was one that I didn't realize that's how they did it until they said it on the broadcast.
Yeah, the game length is what decides tiebreakers like that if you have like similar records. I think they should bring back the magma chamber and make the mid laners 1v1. That would be the real tiebreaker.
I think that's the equivalent of people who say, "Oh,
1v1 me, bro."
For wars and like issues between countries, you should have your leaders fight it out 1 versus 1, like Putin versus like whoever. Like there are
fucking
people that
political
are like,
cage match.
Yeah, there are people that are like, that's how you decide like who wins instead of having all these people go to war and die.
I mean, that's what happened at the beginning of Troy. I don't know how many times, like,
I don't think that happens anymore.
Yeah,
because then people would just be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna like vote for The Rock for president," so that
yeah, you would just want the buffest dude that could just beat up all the other world leaders.
Exactly.
Yeah,
some black belt in jiu-jitsu is now the president.
Man. Well, I guess you would want a black belt in jiu-jitsu because they wouldn't be just like rolling people. They would want to talk peacefully about it. But then if you raised a hand, they would take it and fucking break it and snap your, do whatever they do.
So yeah, I think that's what that would be like. 1v1 mid laners on magma chamber.
Oh yeah, dude. Just Caitlyn versus Caitlyn. What's her Q called? The Peacemaker, right?
Piltover Peacemaker.
That's so long.
She's from Piltover, dude.
Whatever, man. Such a dumb fucking ability name. Anyway, yeah, 1v1 me, dude.
Yeah, I don't have League installed on my computer anymore, so I can't.
I'll 1v1 you in Warzone, man. Meet me at Twisted Towers.
There we go. I'll shoot you out of the sky as we drop out of the bus.
Nice. All right.
But
just get me in the battle bus, dude.
But yeah, just talking tiebreakers, or not tiebreakers, knockout stages. We've got best of fives coming up this weekend. Another, what is it? I guess Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We're having another 4 days of games with T1 versus Hanwha Life on Friday morning, RNG versus EDG Saturday, Damwon versus Mad Lions on Sunday, and Cloud9 Genji on Monday. I did want to mention, I think that Cloud9, this is potentially the best case scenario for their bracket to be able to
by far. They can actually win this game. They can actually win this match.
Not just that, but also for the extended heading towards the finals, because RNG and EDG, like, both were kind of showing some weaknesses in their groups. I mean, both of them went 4-2. They both, 100 Thieves beat EDG. RNG lost to Fnatic. Like, these are teams that have shown that they do have a little bit of ability to be beaten. And
That's
so for C9 to be against Genji and then to be going up against the winner of that RNG EDG series, I think that playing them is a much better option than the other side, where it would most likely be T1 or Dom. Well, they'd have to play T1 or Damwon in the first round, and if they miraculously won that, they'd have to probably play the other one in the second round if they're on the other side of the bracket. They're ending up with, if they can make a run of 2 series to the finals, only having one like extremely tough opponent, really, and it could end up being the team that they've already played. That's like looking way out and being super like not optimistic, but like, hey, this is the best case scenario. But I think that's kind of exciting for C9 too, if they can kind of keep the ball rolling.
Being that Gen G is their first matchup, I would not be surprised if they do make it to the semis. Their semifinal matchup, whether it is RNG or EDG,
still tough.
While it's a tough matchup, but I am hopeful, while not being naive, for a greater or a deeper berth into this tournament.
Yeah.
Because Gen G did not play perfectly, and like you said, RNG and EDG did not either. Not one of these teams on this side of the knockout stage looks bulletproof. So yeah, I think there is a world where Cloud9 at least makes it to the semifinals, we'll say.
I think there's potential for it. Just I'm over here sucking on that hopium.
Bad meme.
I know, it was terrible.
It's like spicy deck, dude. Stop.
But
Stop.
No, I mean, I'm the same as you. I'm realistic. I think that Cloud9 has a tough road ahead of them. But I'm definitely think that this is their easiest path, if there is going to be any easy path in the World Championship knockout stage. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun games. I am excited that we do have Cloud9 there. I wanted to mention it's really kind of interesting, and like for me, I see it as kind of different from other sports and competitive sports, with how the casters from these regions are like all pulling for their home team, kind of, in a way. Like, I just, that's something I wanted to mention. I just find it kind of like interesting, because in normal sports, yeah, there's like a home broadcaster that when they're playing a home game against another team, like they, like their guy is like behind them. But the
favoritism is like super undercurrent, though. I think what you're alluding to is like very much overtones of like, you know, fucking Raz ripping off his shirt and having like a Cloud9 jersey underneath.
Yeah, like in other sports, like home announcers can be very biased in sports, but it's so weird because in League of Legends, you have, like, Cloud9 doesn't have their own broadcaster that announces games that where they're considered the home team or the blue side or whatever. Like, these casters are, like, being as evenly no bias as they can for any of these teams during the regular season, and then they go into this World Championship where every region, all the casters have to be super unbiased about the teams that are in their region and like not pulling for one or the other so that they can have good content. But then when they go to Worlds, like they're like, oh, this team that I was not giving any bias to during the regular season because they were playing another European team, well, now I'm all in on the European team. A lot of that bias starts to kind of show regionally, which it's funny how the switch kind of flips when you get into that international competition, because your teams aren't playing one another.
Oh, that's really interesting. So, like, you don't know who Freak likes more between 100 Thieves, TL, and C9, but it's very clear once he starts casting a North American team that that's who he's pulling for, and he's gonna. Maybe
Yeah.
Freak is a bad example, but that's kind of like the attitude you're alluding to.
Right. And it's
Okay,
not always like in the actual casting of the games. It's the
sure.
outside, it's the interview, the analyst desk, the
Yeah,
pregame, like the like lead up to today kind of thing where all of the casters are like pulling for their own region kind of, and like doing like excited about how's 100 Thieves and Liquid might have a shot to make it out of the groups, and they're like, they're talking more about their home teams and all. So I just thought that was kind of funny because they don't have an opportunity to do that during the regular season. They can't be like,
right.
oh, Cloud9, oh, I'm excited to see Cloud9 against 100 Thieves. I really think Cloud9's got this. They have to
Right.
stay, and like the casts have been very good, but it's the kind of extracurricular stuff that you see that, and I find it interesting and just kind of different from what I'm used to with other professional like commentary and all.
Right. I'll I'll take the observation one step further. And then what about the camaraderie that develops as the Western teams dwindle, where like it's North America, Europe, and they talk about them very separately and talk about the different accolades. But the second we move deeper into the tournament, it's like, oh, there's Cloud9, the final hope for the West. And it's like an EU caster like saying that shit. It's really funny how quickly you like you widen your tribe to like
Well,
cheer.
this is how it goes. You speak English? I speak English.
Yeah.
Let's speak English together.
Yeah.
Like it's there's a little less of that between some of the other regions. We're like, we can just talk our normal languages and understand each other.
Right.
Because like European League of Legends is all in English. They're not, unless you are, which there have been times where there's been like exclusively like Russian teams and stuff like that.
That was a while ago.
But
it's similar in other esports though.
But Splice was a team that was all Danish players initially, and so like there are teams that have been like that. So it's like it's funny though now that just everyone speaks English in EU and NA, and they're just like, "Yep, let's pull for us because we're the underdogs of the big four."
Well, you just loop. Well, we're all the West. Just loop all these big old countries. So yeah, I always find that to be very funny. But yeah, so Cloud9 and Mad Lions, the last hope for the West in the tournament here.
Yep. So lots of good League of Legends. I'm excited for it, but that's about all I've got for that breakdown of kind of how the group stages finished out. Did you have any other final notes or mentions you wanted to throw in there?
No, I don't think so. Overall, I think just to set up each of them, I think RNG is going to be super exciting, and the pick and bans are going to be interesting just because of like China versus China BO5, C9 versus Genji. I think is going to be cool because C9 actually has a shot to get out. I'm looking forward to T1 versus Hanwha just because of the like Korea versus Korea, and the thought that keeps popping into my head is Canna on Kennen. T1 has been using that pick exceptionally well. Some of his teleport flanks are dope. So I think T1 is going to have an advantage against Hanwha Life, but overall I think it'll be a good matchup. We get to see Chovy and Deft in BO5s, and then Damwon versus Mad. If Mad takes a game, I'd be happy for him, but I think that's going to be pretty cut and dry, and then we'll move on to the semifinals. But yeah, overall, not a whole lot of data, just speculation. Those are just some final thoughts for the quarters.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. RNG, the only other note that I had for them is just, and it's something that's been just like consistent, but Xiaohu, I think, shakes the picks and bans. Like you said, those are going to be interesting, but I feel like he shakes them up a bit since he's
and he's so strong.
And been bringing the mages into the top lane and everything. With like
the Syndra pick against Kennen,
the Gragas that he's played that no one else really has. So I think that's going to be pretty cool. And I mean, it kind of we're kind of also aligned for a potential T1 RNG final. That I mean, just like the ability for that to happen is still there, which is funny because that was SKT T1's first world championship was over Royal Club. So
right.
Historically,
the team that always stood in the way of Uzi.
Same clubs, different names at this point. But
different, like big time different rosters too.
Big time different rosters, yeah. But I just thought that was funny. It could end up being like that again for a finals matchup. So
yeah, I think there's some like big interesting storylines that could come out of the way some of these games shake out. But that's all to play for coming up in the coming weeks.
Yep, absolutely. So. Moving along, I know you wanted to talk a little bit of Valorant, sprinkle it in here at the end. Tell me a little bit about this last chance qualifier and like a little more about kind of what was going on with it.
So there's a much larger conversation to be had about like, tournament running and this and that, but just a couple of the standout things that went wrong for this. So this was a qualifying tournament for champions, which is like going to be the Worlds of Valorant, and this was a way for some big teams who don't yet have the qualifying points. It was going to be a way for them to make it to the tournament. Now, it was billed as a LAN event, meaning that you were playing on not an online like public server where you're like using Wi-Fi, but you were basically like everybody was hooked into a hard wire, and so they were all playing like on the same like game environment that was not subject to like pinging to a server. They were all playing on a local area network is what LAN stands for. So it was billed as a LAN, but after the first game, you find out that no, in fact, they were just playing on just like the regular Valorant, like public servers. Yeah. So that led to like lagging issues where there were rounds where players were literally just like sticking to walls. You could see like the cameras just freezing, and then it coming back to live and the round being over, players being dead, but like the round counting, there was no way for them to like reset it. So all sorts of results being decided by like packet loss, frame drops, and lag. The packet loss and frame drops coming from the PCs that they were using were apparently like super subpar. I guess in competitive FPS, you want to be in the 240 frames per second or higher on your monitor, and some of these rigs were doing double digits or just like in the low hundreds. So that was not up to snuff for the pros, and they were just immediately bitching about it. Like I believe it was Hiko from 100 Thieves was very vocal about it on social media. Riot was trying to suppress social media posts from the pros saying, hey, don't say anything about any of the blackouts, don't say anything about the rigs, this has to go off without a hitch. There were interviews being done by third-party interview teams where the lights were literally just like being turned off on them. So there were interviewers just sitting in the dark on couches, just like asking pros questions, where the stream would just like cut to literally a dark room, but like you could see people there like sitting on the couch doing an interview and just like, what the fuck do we do? So they just like, the show must go on.
Well, and
so
I think that it looks like that is something that they've now taken into like consideration, because the first round of quarterfinals, that is what I'm assuming you were this was with 100 Thieves, Gen G, Xset, LG, those teams was on the 12th, correct? Is that like just over a week ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other upper bracket quarterfinals are now October 27th. And like they pushed all of the upper bracket quarters and semifinals are on the 27th. On the 28th is the lower bracket. On the 29th is the upper bracket final. Like they pushed everything back multiple weeks, and then are going to like just kick it up like day after day after day, like it was initially supposed to be, it looks like.
Right. And then just playing the rest of the games online and whatever. But all those like bad results, like all those all those like lag outs and like missed headshots because, you know, your computer's doing 60 frames a second. Like, unfortunately, all that sticks. Excuse me.
Yeah. And those teams that were in that upper bracket quarterfinals that had all these issues are now just stuck, even though I'm assuming for the reason that they're delaying it is so they can set up proper like network and everything to do it as a LAN like they should have in the first place. So
you would hope so. It's just like it just screams a big mishandling.
Yeah, and I can't imagine any other reason that they would have to space it out like that vastly. It clearly was not intended to initially be like that.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of wild that was that poorly set up. I mean, they do this. This is Riot. They do this for League of Legends constantly. Everywhere.
Well, that's why I wanted to tie it in, because like we have such good production value from the Worlds here. I think they're like missing some opportunities, but overall, I think the production is great. Fuck. I think it was at the studios in LA. At the Riot Studios in LA. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, like just like a big faux pas from Riot. And I wanted to bring it up because they're at the same time putting on Worlds right now to many viewers across the world. So it's just surprising that like they can succeed in one area and just like fail in the same arena, just like with a different game. So yeah, big unfortunates for that.
Yeah, that's a bummer. That's honestly disappointing. I'm sure a lot of those players and teams are pretty disappointed. Hopefully they get it together and get it right for the continuation of this tournament.
Yeah, I agree, because I have to say, just as a casual fan of the game, I thoroughly enjoyed Reykjavik and I thoroughly enjoyed Berlin. I thought the production value was there. Like, I enjoyed watching those broadcasts. So to hear that there are issues behind the stage is like kind of surprising and unfortunate, because I do look forward to Valorant as an esport. I think I've enjoyed what I've seen so far. I think the competition has been like super exciting. Maybe there's something about like NA being top of the table that's cool, like Sentinels being super popular, and just strong at the game in general. So yeah, just keeping my eyes like in the direction of Valorant, and just hearing that was just kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it's just also weird too, because I'm assuming that the Berlin studio that they were at was at the Riot headquarters in Berlin. Reykjavik is where they're doing the World Championships right now, I believe. So they've like have that set up. So it's odd that Riot would be set up for these other tournaments in the same locations, and
just fail horribly.
Yeah. Like
brutal.
Rough. Tough looks. But yeah, I guess any other notes, or was that kind of covering what you were
No, and
looking for.
I just wanted to give like a just kind of like a general thing about it. Because I don't have all the details. I don't have any like behind the scenes information or anything. I just wanted to just lay out the general points that just anybody can just see like from the stream and whatnot. I just wanted to comment on that. I'm looking forward to hearing about your flavor of the week here, Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely. So flavor of the week this week, I'll start off with my food. This past weekend or I guess it was this past Thursday, Colleen and I, Thursday or Friday, anyway, she had gotten some ahi tuna, and so we cooked up some ahi tuna. I cooked it up in the pan. She had made this nice little soy sauce cilantro glaze to go on it and everything. Sprinkled in some sesame seeds and all on top, and kept it pretty fresh and raw because it was sushi grade. Which was awesome, so we didn't have to like cook it all the way through. Get that nice little like
Well, yeah, you just want the sear, right?
Yeah, nice little sear and all. So did that with some Caesar salad on the side. So that was our dinner. That was my. It was really good. I want to do it again.
Nice.
Mac Miller was my music for this past week. I've been just like bopping through some playlists, and he's come up a bit, and so I've been just jamming out to him a little bit, just enjoying the music that he has put out there and everything. So I'm it was fun because I hadn't like really listened to him a lot in a while, like periodically here and there songs, but it was fun to just jam out to him for a bit. And then for my show, my roommate Tyler and my friend Zach have both been getting on my case about how slowly I was watching through Naruto. So I finally finished the original Naruto, and now have had to start Naruto Shippuden because they both finished it and are constantly talking about stuff from it. Not constantly, but they bring it up frequently enough, and they're like, "Oh, we can't say too much around Aaron," and I'm just like, "Okay, I'll just watch it." So
damn.
So that's been. I mean, it's not a bad show.
Now, do you avoid filler episodes, or are you a dedicated fan and watch all of them?
I watched all of the episodes for the original. So
Hero.
So now for Shippuden, apparently there's like a whole stretch of like a bunch of episodes that's a lot of filler. But if I'm gonna watch through the whole show and there's a ridiculous enough amount of episodes already, I'm just gonna watch them all. That's my game plan right now. I'm just gonna like I don't plan on going back and rewatching Naruto at any point in my life. Like I don't plan to go back and watch 800 episodes or whatever.
Do you enjoy it?
I do, but like some shows I'm comfortable with just watching once, like because it's just too long. Like there's so many other shows out there that I'm like watching or trying to keep up with or behind on or would like to see, and to take the time to watch through like Naruto Shippuden, the 4 like movies or whatever that they put out for Naruto Shippuden, like it's just a lot of content that if I rewatch all of it, I'm missing out on other things that I would like to see and see if I enjoy as well. So yeah, like I'm paying close attention. I'm not just like throwing it on in the background and like, oh, well, like missing out on stuff. So I like even watching once, I'll have a pretty thorough like knowledge and like memory of it. So
yeah, but you didn't even read the mangas, so like what do you even really know, you know?
Exactly. So
yeah, you're not even a true fan, so
yeah, basically.
Just saying, you didn't even read the mangas, so
yeah. Well, speaking of not manga, but what do they call them? comic books, not comic books, but
Graphic novels,
graphic novels.
the longer ones.
Yeah, are you gonna watch Dune when it comes out? The
I didn't.
movie.
I've never read Dune. I never saw the original
Why
one.
did I think that you had read Dune?
I don't know.
There were other graphic novels I remember you reading, and there were some that were like what I thought was a similar series to that.
I don't know anything about Dune. However, not to like totally shut you down, Brett and Ian, two good buddies of mine, have been talking about it a good bit when they've been around. So through their excitement, I have been steered in that direction. So yeah, I think I will fuck with it. I enjoyed what I saw from the trailers. Chalamet is interesting. I'm always fond of watching like an actor like in their prime. Obviously he's like been hired for a bunch recently and this and that, so it's always fun to see like a young actor hit a couple different roles. I think this is going to be a sci-fi epic. So yeah, I'm like kind of looking forward to it.
Okay. For some reason, I had it in my mind that you had read them back in the day, and so I must be mistaken. But nonetheless, I thought it looked cool too. I'll probably check it out. But that is distracting us from my side notes are distracting us from your flavor of the week, my friend.
Oh no, that's totally fine. Another sidebar. I'm very much looking forward to watching Arcane, the League of Legends show that Riot's doing on Netflix.
Yeah, I think that'll be cool to check out. I'm interested to see how they go about it because it's an interesting way to like a 5v5 game that like changes who's on whose side every time, like tying that into a game that doesn't have like a story like mode. Or
I don't think they're gonna reference the like. I don't think they reference Summoner's Rift at all. I'm pretty
No,
sure
but,
it's like the Vi and Jinx backstory.
But there's no like campaign like in League of Legends that kind of takes you through some of this stuff in a
no,
like,
but there is deep
this
lore.
Is how, yeah, but they've changed so much of it. Like if there was some sort of campaign of some sort that like in other games where it gives you a baseline for like how the interactions go between the different sides, like between Piltover and the Isles where Gangplank and Misfortune are from, and the
Have you seen the trailer?
I've not.
Watch the trailer.
Okay.
Yeah, just watch the trailer.
Because it's just interesting.
You'll have a better idea of what you'll just have a better idea.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it does.
So
does
it's
look
not like
interesting.
an overarching all of League of Legends world. Okay.
Very far from it.
That's
Very far
what
from
I
it.
was imagining. Just like thinking.
I'm
about
pretty
it.
sure it's just dealing. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be like one region. It's
Gotcha.
Zaun being the underworld of Piltover, and it's just like the sister story of Vi and Jinx.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's going to be like
I
like
just was-
like a character story, not like a League of Legends game in a Netflix show.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more of like, this is like this is the
it's
world
way
of-
character
and
driven.
everything that's happening in the world of like League of Legends and
No.
Gotcha. Well, I feel like you could make a pretty like long or large like show out of that. So that was but they might just do other like similar type shows if this one does well.
Well, yeah, and there's also a world where it could just be like Arcane, like 2022, and then that is like the Darius story with like whatever, go to like Freljord with like Ashe and Trundle or whatever. But yeah, I think they're all going to be like very character driven.
Gotcha. That's cool.
So,
okay.
yeah.
That makes sense.
But yeah, to stick on movies, I'll talk about my visual medium for my flavor of the week. So I saw No Time to Die, the James Bond movie,
Yes.
with my dad, and I was just like tickled pink overall. I had so much fun. I thought it was great. The opening scene was like epically compelling. I was thinking while watching it, I was like, was there ever a better opening Bond sequence? Like, it was very compelling.
Oh, I'm
And then,
excited to
like,
see it now.
dude, it's dope. And then some of the sickest, like, close up camera work that I've seen. They have Bond in. No, I'm not spoiling anything, but they have Bond in
And
like a
Aston
tight.
Martin.
Well, a lot of Aston Martins, yeah. But they have him in this like tight stairwell, and watching him move through the stairwell with like very little room to move about. Like, it is a claustrophobic space, but the way he makes it, like, the way he moves in it makes it feel like he has like 50 feet on either side of him. It is really fun to watch. And I think that's like him knowing how to move on camera, and then be like whoever was doing the camera work inside the stairwell, it was like this little dance that was going on that was like, mwah. Me and my dad talked about it. There have been better villains, and that's like our one critique. There have been better villains, but overall, it was just to use Will Buxton's term, it was a tour de force of just like James Bond action. It was sick.
Nice. That's so cool. I'm looking forward to it. I've enjoyed the recent James Bond movies a lot. Like, I've gone back through, and there were some that I had never seen until recently. There are some that I'd seen Skyfall. I'd seen the one after that. I'm blanking on the name right now. But like Casino Royale, I had only seen bits and pieces of when it was on TV, and so like, going back to those, or I forget what the other one was right about then with Daniel Craig, but
yeah, it was Casino Royale. Then there was the one in between that and Skyfall, where it was about the water in the desert.
Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Solace, yes, thank you. And that was like the little. It was like a vignette of Bond's life, where Casino Royale was his first mission as a 00 was the idea, and then you have like. And then everything after Casino Royale is like canon, and they actually end that little, like, call it little saga. They tie that up in this one, which is super cool. So yeah, those are super compelling.
Was Daniel Craig's last Bond movie, and so and Spectre was after Skyfall. So I've seen Skyfall and I've seen Spectre, but I hadn't seen all of Casino Royale, and I hadn't seen Quantum of Solace until recently. I went back and just watched them because I saw they were on Netflix. I was like, oh, cool. So
yeah, Quantum of Solace was pretty dope. I love that. I mean, whatever. I'm a glutton for punishment, but the scene at the very end of Casino Royale where Lashif has James Bond in the chair, and he's got the fucking, and he's literally laughing in his face, and he says, "I've got an itch," and he's like, "No." Dude, that exchange was like, I love that scene so much. Just like, that is it, when I think of like, if I hear the phrase like "fuck you money," like that phrase comes to mind. Like, he could have got hit in the nuts a million times in that chair, and it would not have fazed him at all. Like, he was such a badass in that moment. So yeah, those recent Bond movies are pretty fun. So that's my visual medium. I had another note here, but I won't waste your time. Maybe I'll save that for later. My food, Sarah cooked up a banging pot roast. And the thing to seal the deal, we had bought 2 baguettes from Panera of their French bread.
Yeah.
Dude, we love that shit so much. It's so crunchy, man.
What's your favorite like colder weather food? Because like you've talked about Sarah's chili, now it's this pot roast. Like, what is?
I like that shit.
Yeah, no, like, but do you have a favorite like winter? I like my cold weather. I really like soups. So my top like soups during the winter time.
Chicken noodles, like solid.
Well, chicken noodles like my casual if I'm just like I'm like, I don't know what I want. But ones
Sure, it's
that,
pretty normy, I guess.
but no, I mean, it's just I just get like the basic chicken noodle, not with all the vegetables and everything, and I
Oh,
just buy
okay.
like the can, so it's like
Sure.
pretty plain. But I really love clam chowder and French onion soup. Those two
Okay.
are like kind of some of my go-to wintry type picks.
I would have to say it's the stuffing, gravy, and turkey meal
Ooh.
after Thanksgiving, like on the heat up. Like
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have, I think I, it's okay. This will illustrate it perfectly. So it's the stuffing, the gravy, and the dark meat turkey, and I just slather it in nostalgia. I think that's like the meal that I think of when you ask that question is
Yeah.
the after holiday warm ups. Where it's
Gotcha.
like the plate's filled, you have some broccoli on there, you put the biscuit in, you just throw it all in the microwave. It's like
Yep.
a little smorgasbord afterward. That's my favorite winter meal.
Okay, gotcha. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because you've talked about the chili and now the pot roast. Those are like warm, wet. Like people don't eat pot roast when it's 95 degrees outside. Like
No, they
it's
don't.
so it's starting to get that weather. I was curious if you had a favorite. So that's cool.
Oh, very much so a fan of these sweater weather meals.
Yeah.
And obviously, my grandparents died when I was young. I've got hang-ups about winter, so keeping me warm is key. Now, I don't have a music for this week. I'm going to change it up. I told you about the book list that me and Sarah are going through, right?
Yeah.
100 books everyone should read before they die. The next one for me is Dracula. Now, she already read it and she was very pleased with it. And I just read chapter 2 today and I am like hooked. It is super exciting. So, this is the original printing from, it was first published in 1897, and this is the novel that introduces the character of Count Dracula in literary history. And just being a couple of pages into the story, it is of the ones on the list, I think I've connected with it immediately the most.
Gotcha. That's pretty
So
cool.
Dracula by Bram Stoker is my music/book rec here for this week.
Very nice. I'm about it.
Yeah. So that's my flavor of the week there, Aaron. Is there anything you want to get into before we close out of this here?
No, I think that's all I've got, really. But everyone, of course, you can find us on Twitter. We're at Tall and Short of One. We are on YouTube. We're all over the place for podcasts, Spotify, Google, Anchor. You can find us. Keep an eye out. If you don't follow the YouTube, definitely check it out because we do have the Race Companion, like we said, coming up this Sunday. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun, Justin, talking with you about all the goings on of the past week. Let's roll this one out.
Yeah, it was fun talking with you too, Aaron. It's been a blast, man.
I have
But
so
yeah,
much fun with this.
no, that
like,
was just a
doing this.
funny that was just a
Yeah.
funny outro. But yeah, this has been the Tall and Short of It podcast. Thank you all for listening. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys tuning in. This has been a lot of fun. Everyone, peace out.
Later.